Hi, and after many months of convincing Mohan, who kindly said yes each and every time I said, "Will you be a guest on my podcast?" We are finally having this recording today. Welcome, Mohan. Um,
My pleasure and hello, hello.
uh, and one of the things that I was wondering today, since we know each other for such a long time, I am doing a series called The Vulnerable Me at this point in under the values workshop. So what is it that I would want to ask you? There were several questions, but one question stuck in my head. This was when we actually became friends. If you remember, there was one job that both our bosses were adamant that they should have their way around that job.
Sure.
And we had a couple of bad days on that one till both of us decided to have a call that we will go with whatever one of the bosses was saying. And
Right, huh?
you would take the hit if anything like that happened.
Correct.
Uh, and I've always, at that juncture, I always thought here is a guy who stands up for what he believes in. Although it seems like nonsensical that we stand up for such things, but at that point you said, "Don't worry, I'm there."
Huh.
So my
Sure.
question
Okay.
to you, I knew that you were as tense about your senior as I was about mine at that point of time. So that space is very vulnerable, and both of us were quite unhappy about how they were behaving with each other, and we just didn't know how to take a call. I want to get
Sure.
in you to get into that mind space and tell me after those 2 3 days what gave you the confidence to stand with that vulnerability that, and we knew both of them could be quite obnoxious in the way they behaved with each other
Sure.
and us as well. So what
Right.
gave you the confidence to stand up in a scenario where we were sure to get some flack from both of them?
I don't know, honestly. I would love to say I had great clarity in vision and so on, mein aa gaya ki, and I was a mature human being. वो सब कुछ नहीं. At one point, you say you choose one of the two, right? And we did. And I remember that entire period when we were working together on either side, client side, this side, whatever. Neither of us was really the client, neither of us was really the agency. It was our bosses who were. So the calls weren't really in our hands. But at the end of the day, when it came to us to take a call, and the big advantage also was that our friendships also started with, whether with you or Smita or everyone else who was working, our friendships also started from the premise of good work. It didn't start with the premise of chalo yaar party karenge. The premise was because we enjoyed working with each other. That's where it started. Um, so it at one point then you feel ownership. It's not just about the fact that mere dost ne likha. It is about kaam ye acha hai. So then you feel ownership. At the end of the day, if you don't fight for it, who else will? It was also my second job, I remember. And that was the job that I wasn't very sure when I was putting any foot right. I don't think I did for most of that time. But if you don't own up to it, then there is nothing. Then just quit. Just don't do that job. But it backfired on me quite a few times.
Yeah.
This whole situation. I remember we came. I got a lot of flack for it from my boss and my boss's boss. So I got a lot of flack from it. But it's looking back at that time right now. At least no one had a doubt about a situation. This guy will say something and believe something tomorrow. That never happened. They might have all kinds of differences of opinion with me, but if I have an opinion, then I'm clear. I'm happy to be convinced otherwise. But I won't go to my boss today and say I like this, and then go to my boss 3 days later. No, I didn't like it, so I changed this. That will not happen. 3 days later, also I'll fight for the same thing. At least that integrity they knew that I had, and plus I had that much. Um, like I said, there's some ego also to it. Whatever it is, all put together, I never had a major confusion about the situation that मैं ये क्यों कर रहा हूँ. That was not the question mark about why am I doing this. The question mark was more about how will I deal with it later.
Yeah.
That's an easier question. In worst case, you don't deal with it well, but at least your conviction is at the right place. You're not coming under pressure and doing something random. So that was fine. You deal with the repercussions of it well, badly, and that is why even now, my ex-boss and my boss's boss, especially my boss's boss, now comes to our shows, and he has those. He keeps messaging me, and we keep talking about our music and all of that. But he always there was no situation with how do I put it, with the personality. His situation was his difference of opinion in work. And most of the time there was difference of opinion. There was very rarely a situation where we agreed. So So I think it was less to do with yaar dekhi jayegi and I'm a strong guy and I can deal with it. I was like, this decision though I know it's in my hand, and then to push it forward and then take the repercussions of it, wo galat hoga अच्छा hoga wo dekhi jayegi, that I don't know. And he's a senior guy, man. He's not a junior fellow who's our bosses. So uh, there was nothing I could have done to if he said, get lost and this is, you deal with this now or you'll be fired, or
Yeah.
that bad, but close to that, then deal with it. That's fine. But at least don't will deal with that same shit for doing something wrong that you don't even believe in. So utna, at least thankfully that clarity was there. So ho gaya.
This
And
is
then of course we had lots of back conversations about kya hua. That you can do over the weekend. So
yeah.
wo hota tha.
This is wonderful because I also realized at that point of time, couple of conversations with my boss during those days. In fact, all the bosses that I worked with, somehow now when I look that I've been on my own for 15 years or something, and I realized when I was quitting one of the last jobs that I was doing with a big agency, and I was asked, why are you starting things on your own? It's a very difficult journey. And I said, at the end of the day, I do not want a cabin for myself with three people reporting to me. I want
Sure.
my creative out there. It may be right, it may be wrong, it may be wonderful, it may be awful. It doesn't matter to me. But I need to know what is it that is my real expression instead of always trying to make somebody happy or because I have a point of view. And fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes we were not given a chance to. We did some work for UNICEF, I remember the lady coming from UNICEF had said that we had done some excellent work, but our own agency put it down and put some other work forward. And then you were thinking, why are we putting so much effort? And here you always been thinking that your work stands true on any parameter in any part of the world. And here you are being asked to, do something that you do not believe in, like you said. This clarity of thought, I think, comes from your conviction that you're really trying to do a good job. The intent itself has to be very strong. So it's very interesting that you would answer it in this manner because one of the other questions that was running in my head was, as a creative person in a field which is uh, loaded with a lot of ego problems, a lot of money being put on your kind of work, a lot of creative differences as well, genuine creative differences, where you are just one person um, who's got his handle only over one part of the job. How do you at that point stand up for your? How do you manage to have courage of conviction? And what is it that works or doesn't work in your case? Is there a pattern? Is there no pattern? How does it work for you?
There are patterns. Um, so there are two, three different things. One is, let's assume that just give me 1 second. Okay, I'm going to restart this because I started WhatsApp to take your link and people are continuously messaging me. 1 sec. Sorry. So yes, there are similarities in most of the cases where these things happen. There is always going to be a tussle. See, there's one side which is the film side. Let's assume I or we, as in Agni or me, whoever it is, we are composing for a film. There's going to be a director. There's going to be a producer. Producer will be looking at the business angle, because the whole point of having songs in a film is to promote the film and to get people to the theaters. Pre-COVID times. Now again, probably it will start again,
Yeah.
that whole mathematic. So the whole point of spending XYZ money on the music was twofold for a producer. Is always twofold for a producer. First is to get money from the album itself by selling it to a label. And the second, which is rare because that then needs to be a big film. So if it's a big film, let's say Rock On or some Salman film or some Amir Khan film or all of those, where the label will also believe that yeah, film chalegi, therefore gaane to hit hone honne, so let me take it anyway. So that's when they get money from there, where they make money on this investment, purely music to music done. And on top of that, the second thing is because someone has, it's a chain, because the label has paid them an XYZ amount of money, let's say 5 crores, 10 crores, whatever, for that album. They are now invested to spend that much more money to promote those same songs, to earn from them, because this label is only earning from the music. Therefore, the songs get promoted. because of which now the songs get popular, and that is all pre-filmed. Therefore, people come to the hall to buy tickets. That's your mathematic. So the producer has the mathematic. The director has his or her vision. Now, the vision of the film, the creative vision of the film, in terms of two things. One is there is a soundscape that they want to adhere to. कि यार मेरी जो film है ये लखनऊ, दिल्ली इस जगह based है. तो मुझे more sounds north के ही चाहिए. That is one ऊपर ही ऊपर वाला zone. There, the background score guy is also very clearly, has to go around that direction. The musician also, the songs composer will also have to go around that direction. Plus, on top of that, इस गाने में मेरी एक story बढ़ रही है. And many directors in recent times have this zone that they don't want to have songs just for song's sake. They want to have a song which is taking the story forward. So but they're not very sure how the music will figure. So what they do is they start. This is where the reference songs come, where they start putting in dubby songs that they've already heard. There'll be a director who'll say, "I want that Quentin Tarantino kind of sound." So there'll be a couple of the soundtracks that guy has chosen, which will come here. Now, to get away from that is difficult. These kind of situations, which is there, one side, let's say I'm captain of my ship in terms of the music piece of things. Okay, I'm the one who's taking that. At the end of the day, I'm answerable to the director. What I have a clear understanding about is that at the end of the day, creative call needs to be taken by the director, because that is the person who's handling everything in the film. So I might be the head of one department under him or her, but I can only take a call on the music. Now my job is to satisfy that director's vision the best that I can. Therefore, for me to say that ये गाना reject हो गया मैं एक और बनाता हूँ is fine. I have zero issues with that. I mean, whether as Agni or us, we've never had issues with that. But our understanding is to make sure that the brief is correct. That okay, this is what I want to achieve. So for that, we de-link music from the brief. We tell that person, don't give us musical brief, because your musical brief will be your understanding of music. Don't do that. You give me your brief of your understanding of the visual, your understanding of the story, as much as possible. इसमें मुझे ये scenes चाहिए. My most important scene in this is, for example, a girl is crying alone and there's this long shot. I want to nibhao that because that drama has to come out the most. So for me, I know, okay, this is his flashpoint or her flashpoint, and things like that. So these are ways to deal with it. The other way around is when I'm going to sing a song and I'm just a very small piece. By that time, the song is approved. The director has approved the song. The music director has created that song. Everyone has a vision of what that song is going to be. They've already shot to it. It's already been done, because I'm going to sing the song right before it's final. So at that point of time, if I come in and I have to change things around, and if I want to sing it slightly differently, forget lip sync songs. Lip sync songs, usually they are recorded almost final before they're done. But the non-lip syncs, there's a montage situation that's going on. In those cases, it becomes very important for me to deal with what has already been done, and to sing on top of that exactly the same way, so that there is no loss of expectation. There's no difference between expectation and what they're finally getting. That's a tough one. But all of these are less to do with ego, but it used to be a lot to do with ego earlier, because we were also in the zone where we were trying to prove ourselves. At that point of time, you have a lot of bluster. You want to try and prove to someone who's sitting on the other end of the table that you're already there, where you actually not reached. But you want to, because you assume that's the only way you'll get respect. अरे हमें पता है music, आप हमें music मत समझो. But that conversation never ends well. It never ends well. True. Then there is always, there's no point. Now it's become different. Now it's a zone where we are saying, okay, we are happy to do 2 or 3 versions. Don't worry. Our job is to nibhao your vision. We don't want your film to be something that you didn't expect it to be. If it is, then it should be better. That, I'm so surprised. Shit, I never expected that I could do this. Now when I go and shoot in the scratch, because it's such a big song, now I can put a lot of scale to my shoot. My depth of field longer. Yeah. I won't just do it in a room. I'll do this different. Yeah. Or the other way around, कि यार मुझे ये close space में करना है. मुझे एक बहुत छोटा सा angle है ना, उस पे तुम strings मत डालो. मुझे बड़ा नहीं बनाना उसको. Both ways. If you're open to that conversation, then that person is also open to it. And this is not a journey that I honestly don't believe that we could have gained whatever X level of maturity, 20% maturity that we've gained now, we couldn't have gained on day one. It's just not possible. It's not possible to predict that ये होगा बाद में. तो हम लोग पहले से ही ऐसे करते हैं, because at that point we believe that if we are going to do this, then the producer will try to make us do music according to what they think is music. तो उसको एक गाना बहुत पसंद है आर.डी. बर्मन का, और वही वाला गाना उसने रेफरेंस पे डाला है, तो वैसे ही एक और बनवा देगा हमसे. And that is why it is not possible for us to even go there. Now people don't expect us to do it. Their expectation is also this, that okay, we have a certain perspective of music, which is why they're coming to us. So we don't need to do it. It's a weird situation. It's like people keep saying, "Na, Bachchan Saab is the most genuinely gracious human being." The difference is that apparently people said that about him when he came to work first, when he was no one, when no one knew him. Now the thing is, I keep wondering about this. If Bachchan Saab enters a room, everyone's going to stand up. When Gulzar Saab enters a room, everyone's going to stand up. Everyone's going to give that person respect. They've got that body of work over years. Where, I mean, मैं देखता हूँ गुलजार साहब को, मुझे पैर छूने यार. I want to take his blessings. और जाकिर हुसैन और any of these people.
Of course.
So उनको जरूरत कभी नहीं पड़ती होगी. कोई कौन आके गुलजार साहब को बोलेगा कि यार ये आपने लिखा है ना, को चेंज कर दो. कौन आके बोले? Like, it's just very, very unlikely. So it's those kind of things that we earn over a period of time, and that journey is going to be common for anyone. I think. I don't think we did something wrong at that point. Now I can look back at it and say, क्या unnecessary bluster था कि यार मुझे ये चाहिए, मैं अपना कर लूँगा, तुम मत देखो. But honestly, I can't think of a better way to have done it then. I wish I'd not, but I can't think of a better way even now. You know, if I were in that position, it's a very strange situation, but it also helps me be at peace with what we did at that point and how we created the music at that point. I think that's why that journey has helped us learn. So that
it's an interesting thing. At least 2 or 3 interesting things that came up was that you used the word integrity earlier, but here it is even more so. So if you are in the beginning trying to pitch for yourself, it is not really. At least one thing that I used to think, you can correct me if you also thought similarly, that while there is bluster involved in selling it, there is no fake approach to your own work. Once you sold it, you come back, you know you are going to. Today I was teaching my daughter the phrase midnight oil, burning the midnight oil. I think literally that is what you put in. Like you will go to any length to fulfill the promise you made. If there is a problem there, then there is no need talking about anything, because there is no integrity towards your own work.
Absolutely. So, which is why I said, just coming back to that point a little bit, which is why the bluster I said was a good thing probably, because if that weren't there, then I would be creating something that was purely on someone else's vision. I would have had probably very, very little percentage of my own inputs in it. And we might not have been happy with that music later. Then what's the point of doing it anyway? Because at the end of the day, you're not known for your music. You're known for something you created for someone else, which is really not what you are. So it's that zone. So I think that's why for me.
I think a lot of creatives are going to enjoy this conversation, because the idea of the vulnerable me is actually that, because the finished Mohan Kannan is known to everyone. He's an established music guy. He's got a name. He's got the fame. But they do not understand that it really is about that space of figuring out, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to approach it. One interesting question I have, when we were beginning our creative journeys, an option was considered a bad word. You had to crack it, and this is the one you have to do. And right now, very slowly and simply, you just pointed out, now we are open, we give 3 options, we do this, and we do it willingly. I find the same thing with me a couple of times. So when I have to rework, I don't have that angst anymore, that as a youth you have, that I know how can you question my writing or whatever. So how does this come to be? How does one be willingly vulnerable? Like you're giving 3 pieces, and I believe all 3 pieces are equally good most of the time. There might be what we call it 19 bees. But otherwise,
no, but you might have one favorite that this is what I would prefer, but then because this guy's or someone else's requirement
how do you make peace with that kind of vulnerability where you're presenting 3 things and unsure whether all 3 would go together or one of them would go? You're willing to revisit the drawing board. How does one make peace with something like that?
Okay, there are 2 aspects to it. Again, first aspect is the marketing angle. Okay, being smart about it, at least I think it is, because what happens is if you're pitching for a film, uh, and you don't know whether you're doing the film. Okay, they are looking at 6, 7 music directors at that point, and this is very rare for us because, again, like I said, they come to us for a specific sound. It's not as if they're coming to us as one of many. So hum log ko वैसे ही but when there is a pitch involved, which is rare, but at that point, it is always better to get them to choose between 2 of your own songs, as opposed to between one of yours and one of the 6 other people.
Yeah.
So it's an easier situation, and you drive the conversation there. That
Yeah.
this is according to your brief. This is a little different because I want to take it like this, but I'm not very sure whether this brief really works for you. But I wanted you to tell me which one of this is better. Now the question is, tell me which one of this is better. The question is not, do you like it? It is a better question for me to ask a client always. Then that person will say, of course, they like this one better, and they would have already gotten a certain strength of conviction behind it, whichever one that they like better. If they're confused between the two, even better. Because if they're confused, then they're only choosing between these two. Then they'll choose your better one, but they would have used that as conviction, and it drives them there. So that's the trying to subliminally give them a push towards your some kind of zone. Works
Wonderful.
many times, sometimes also falls flat, but works many times.
Yeah.
The other side of it is also this, that at the you know that you can do your music well. That's fine. You have to have that conviction that I can nibhao this. I can do whatever the situation demands. Um, but for a director to be able to move to your sonic representation of his visual or her visual will take some time. It is not going to happen like they hear a song. Rarely. It's going to happen sometimes. They hear a song, bloody hell, this is it. But at that point, if it doesn't happen, there are certain cases where people have come to us and said, यार इसमें क्या है ना, मुझे लग रहा है इसमें ये पियानो डाल दिया ना तो मुझे अलग फीलिंग हो रहा है, ये पियानो चेंज करके तुम एक फोक इंस्ट्रूमेंट डाल, ठीक है, like we'll do that, but first tell me why is it bothering you. Don't tell me about instruments, don't tell me in a musical language, tell me why is it bothering you. Think of it as a lay person कि मुझे ये क्यों अजीब लगा. Then let me figure it out. Sometimes it turns out that the piano is actually not the thing. It is the overall feel of the song. The piano is taking it in that feel, but that's my, that's one of the instruments in the mix that is taking it there.
Yeah.
So I'll say, wait, we'll do that. We'll do something else, but let me compose something else, because I get a feeling that maybe there's some miscommunication in the first brief. And many times that happens, that after the first sonic representation, they realize that, shit, this is not what I am, because they get, a director is also trying their best to give you the best brief possible to make your work easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're trying to push you as well. इसीलिए reference भी दे देंगे, like यार ये ऐसा गाना हो जाएगा ना एकदम sorted है. And we then tell them don't. वैसा गाना बन चुका है. So then their poor fellows are in a soup है. कि मैंने एकदम perfect direction दे दिया, मुझे यही चाहिए था यार, गुस्तावो ही चाहिए था मुझे, लेकिन तुमने अब गुस्तावो की जगह तुम अभी एक बाउल म्यूजिक देखो तो मैं कैसे समझूं. But I've already told you. Now you're putting them in a soup thing, वो reference मत दे, मैं अपना करता हूँ. And at that point, you have to give them that leeway to be able to move to your thing. So give them 2-3 days. So you live with it. Then come back to me. Or you don't get it, let me be open to the situation and I'll give you one more. Let me see if I can rework from scratch. And I love that procedure because you also get to know what all you can do as a musician. Some cases you can't crack it. I've had a situation where I've cracked a song after 3 months. I've done an option. That person, I said, listen, at this point of time, ये सिचुएशन छोड़, बाकी 4 पे काम करते हैं, बिकॉज ये वाला सिचुएशन हमने 2 ऑप्शन कर लिया. Neither are you happy nor am I happy, and luckily with a film we have that advantage, that especially non lip sync songs की अभी 2 दिन में शूट है, वैसा वाला नहीं करना है, डांस सॉन्ग नहीं है, it's a montage song. Those times I've come back after 3 months saying suddenly एक वो नहाते वक्त तो हमेशा अच्छे आइडियाज होते हैं ना. So one of those times आया एक like यार this kind of thing. So that's happened in these cases, and that's where I genuinely love it. I genuinely love the idea that we have options to explore, and therefore it gives me the confidence in myself that I can do this. The same song I can look at in 3 different approaches or 2 different approaches. And वो कोई भी गाना waste नहीं होता. If you want to, you can release that other song later. That's as a separate thing. That's the advantage that we have. I'm not purely a film guy. Actually, the film part of me is 10%. 90% of me is Agni and my independent stuff. So, which is just purely who we are. It has no brief, nothing. Ye gana bana, that's it. So that also gives me a little bit of confidence that मुझे नहीं फर्क पड़ता. मुझे
I think
अगर ये गाना separately release करना पड़ा. So
the
that's
beauty is, sorry, you complete
no,
first.
no. I was just finished. That's what I'm saying. So because I have an outlet to release my songs, I'm not slave to just that one format of film. That I don't care that ये reject हो गया, दूसरा वाला हो गया. तो I'm very happy to release that song separately. If I do believe in it, I should be able to.
Yeah,
I don't want to trash it saying director didn't like to trash. I want to believe in that song, and if I do like that song a few months later, I hear it and I love it. I'm going to release it separately. क्या problem?
barabar.
So
I think one of the things that is coming across to me is the the learning attitude that you're bringing to your profession. As you grow and you're supposedly becoming a master of your trade, whether it is in selling your wares or in the way you project yourself or use other means of convincing the director or the producer, options being one of them, but the way you are looking at the art itself. uh, uh, I've been quoting this, I think, poem, these two lines from Harendranath Chattopadhyay a couple of times in the last couple of episodes, but they've always had a huge impact on me as a kid. That when I was younger, I was proud of being the poet, and now I am older, I am content to be the poem. I think,
oh wow,
and
oh wow, that's beautiful.
it's such a beautiful thought because I'll send you the poem later, but it's like again and again you revisit it and you realize that something is being done through you. You are one of the first recipients of that beauty that is being created. Uh, some people call it co-creation. In fact, one of the things I was remembering a couple of days back was I read about I think Jaydev, Geet Govind, he had written in the 12th century or something. If I remember his name correctly, that saint
Geet
is
Govind is Jaydev.
and he is unwell and he has fever, so he cannot go to the Ganga to take his ritualistic bath that he takes every day before he sits down to write. Uh, so in that Doordarshan episode, Ganga actually comes to his home, and it
Wow.
made a huge impact to me because that means that is the amount of discipline that he must have put in where or even when those gods appear in front of all these sadhus and whatever, I've always felt that more than god or the godliness of the situation, it is just the integrity with which they have approached their subjects. They've
Sure.
chosen meditation as a subject or writing or
Whatever it is.
Malhar by Tansen. It's not really a, to me, it's a incidental thing that it's going to rain.
Sure.
That miracle is really unimportant. Just the fact that he feels that he has in himself and he wants to really worship that art so much that I think that is the beauty that is coming across to me from the way you're, not that any of us is reaching those levels because of the way our lifestyles are, but at least the approach and the intent is fairly genuine in trying to discover what can come out of us. So do you want to comment something on that?
Upbringing, no? This is purely upbringing. This is a value system that's instilled in us from childhood, no? Like I said, when we started Agni, my first big thing was that my mom and my Guruji and my dad should approve. Had they not, would I have still continued to do Agni or not? I don't know. Honestly, it's a question mark. It's not clear to me that if they had not approved, I would have still continued to do it and fought that battle. But I never wanted to do something that moved away from what I believe was good music. And what I believed was good music came from upbringing. So at that point also, our era is slightly different because we were not in the social media zone. We didn't have access to become successful. I'm not even saying stars. I'm saying successful as musicians through means that were available to us individually. It was to do music in such a way that someone who was a deciding authority at a label or at XYZ place gets convinced enough with that music and therefore releases it. We didn't have that option of trying to figure out what stardom is. Our thing was, from the beginning, our thing was to become better musicians. That's what our parents taught us. Our parents didn't teach us how to be successful. They never made us look in that direction. They made us look in a direction where your skill was better. So I remember that my only tests of music were when all the Vidwans used to come home. And for me, because of my parents, Vidwans used to be home all the time. Like the biggest Carnatic musicians, some of the because Calcutta, then many big Hindustani musicians. I met Zakir Hussain Saab when I was what 7, because my mom and he were playing a concert. Uh, so at that, I remember he gave one Sandalwood Krishna to my mom because it was my birthday the next day. It's like Mohan hai chalo. So I remember all that. But your idols, the people you want to impress, that who you want to say shabash, they want, you want to play something or do something for them to say, are all people who are, I mean, like you said, they've done tapasya with their instrument. They've my grandmother told me this story that all waking hours she was with the violin, all waking hours. It is not possible for us to even imagine that that's possible. That हम
No,
लोग वो practice
I
कर
missed
सकते
this
हैं.
last point. What did your grandmother say?
About my mother, that she apparently used to be with the violin all waking hours. उठती थी वो, नहा के ब्रेकफास्ट करके वायलिन, फुल डे फुल, मतलब जब तक सोती हैं तब वायलिन ही, because she was actually a vocalist. Then she saw Lalgudi Jaraman's concert when she won this All India Radio Award for best Carnatic vocalist in the country. That function had Lalgudi Jaraman, who's like a legend. We treat him like God, violin player from in the Carnatic field. She'd seen that concert. She got so inspired that she started learning the violin, self-taught. And when she started learning the violin, because by that time she had reached that level where her voice can do things that she is thinking. Fingers, you need more time because it's motor skill that you're. So for her, practicing the violin was that important. She used to spend all waking hours with it. हम लोग का तो 2 दिन प्रैक्टिस होता था, सॉरी 2 घंटा होता था दिन में, तो we used to feel excited कि यार today आज हमने खाना कमाया अपना kind of. So and that's so tiny compared to what, I mean, all our idols are. So our entire perspective is towards, getting better at the music so that people we idolize come and tell us. Our thing is not about, oh my God, we'll get 50,000 likes on Instagram. This is never the perspective, and that is always an offshoot. Very happy if we get 50,000 likes. I'm not, but for a minute, trying to say that I don't like it when people like my stuff on Instagram. I love it. I'm very happy when people write good comments and press that like. I'm like, wow, say 10,000 views. I'm very happy with it. But I know that that is for the right reason, and that's why I'm proud of it. That मेरा गाना सुन के किसी को पसंद आया, and that's what I do. To do a better job, I want to get better at my music. To do a better job, I don't want to say, what do they like? Let me try and do that song. I'll never think like that. I don't think anyone in our generation, actually, most of us never thought like that because we weren't allowed to. Our parents made sure of it. That यार कुछ करना है अच्छा तो उसके लिए क्या करना, वो सीखना पड़ेगा, और ऑप्शन नहीं है. तुमको अच्छी नौकरी चाहिए, पढ़ाई ठीक से करो. ये सब तो ऑप्शन नहीं कि चलो यार कुछ और कर लेते हैं. I think that is the main reason why that integrity is instilled in us. We can't really take much credit for it. मार पड़ती है अगर नहीं होता. And that's a big advantage of the kind of upbringing that we've had. It's as much fear of disapproval which makes you do the good things, because tomorrow if I did something that in my mom's eyes or my guruji's eyes or my family's eyes felt like it was the kya kar diya, and that song becomes a super hit, I'll feel even more ashamed. So that's not giving me any happiness. So kya fayda? So I like this far more, and it's a choice.
I have one more question on the flip side of this part. There is a filmmaker called Jaideep Verma, who's a friend of mine on Facebook, and sometimes we chat once in a while. He keeps writing about Bob Dylan quite often, and somebody else introduced me to Leonard Cohen, and I can't really say that I'm into them or whatever. I have my own limitations in terms of understanding them. Whatever little bit that I've seen of them, I find their expressions break traditions. Like they are almost, in my layman language, they are almost dialogues on the society, but put musically, and very powerfully, very unique and completely path breaking. So now my question on the other side is, one is this traditional understanding that we were given and the kind of people that we are. As Indians also, we are a little, we look at it as, I think Osho said somewhere that we are the only country in the entire world who pursued nothing for 10,000 years. And that's why there is something good although he had this thing for being dramatic. I think there is
Sure,
some
sure.
merit in this kind of outlook that we had before. At least now 20 years, 30 years, we've changed a bit and we are becoming a little more Western in our thinking.
Mm,
So people like you and me are kind of aware at least what happens in the West and how they approach a certain thing.
sure.
So as a creative person,
Mm,
when you have an idea that is really path breaking, or it is hypothetical in case that has not happened in your case,
sure.
um, how do you go out and express yourself irrespective of the fact that people who do not respect people whom you respect may not respect that work, but you feel very strongly about it. If something like this were to happen, how would you deal with that vulnerability? Because now the way you're talking, you're completely settled in that zone that they have to approve it. It doesn't matter what the world thinks. Now
Sure.
I'm saying, forget the world and forget these gurus that you have. If both of them may or may not approve, but you have something that you feel very strongly about, which happens once a while. So,
Mm,
how do you look at that? What do you do about this? And you also have a musical partner. So
mm,
sometimes he and you together, and where you are listening to him, and he is very convinced, and you can see what it is, but it doesn't
mm,
work with your ethos
mm,
temporarily. You are
mm.
convinced of what is happening. So how would you deal with something like
The second question is easier with what happens with Coco, who's my partner in the band, and we compose together, where there are many times where we fight about a musical difference of opinion. Like he will have a few notes that he'll add to the solo that he would have really liked. That's very common. Where in the popular song format, you don't have to stick to a rag. It doesn't have those rules. Uh, but I would like to, like, वो तीन नोट क्यों बजाना है? I remember कैसे हो तुम, especially, which is one of our more popular songs. Um, in that, he had played the solo where there was a couple of notes which were not in that scale. So I remember having a long conversation with him. Like, क्यों करना है यार? वो change कर देना. He said, no, I want it like this because this is my expression. मैं तेरा expression क्यों बजाऊं? So fair enough, that is true. But don't, according to me, this is wrong. There, finally, it came out the way he had played. I still didn't like it for a while. Now, after about 6 months or so, this was 2013. After about 6 months or so, I couldn't hear that solo any other way. It grew on me, it grew on me, it really grew on me. I remember at that time, Coco had told me, Mummy ko beach. If she says it's okay, you'll be fine, right? So I said, ठीक है. And my mom said, it's fine. I'm like, yaar, ye kya matlab hai? Same side goal mar diya. So and Coco was like laughing his ass off. He's like, see, hello. But it's that whole thing. It is whether uh, uh, my whole thing of seeking approval from these people, I look at it more as a construct, less as a this person, that person kind of. It is the values that they've taught. It is the kind of, it's not about right and wrong music. It's about music you're proud of, that you're happy with. Which brings me to my first part of the question,
that?
which is when if I get an idea that I know that my parents will disapprove of, or my uh, guru will disapprove of, there's one thing: why will they disapprove of it? Is it something shameful that I'm doing? Is it something that is just stupid? Am I trying to promote? Uh, am I doing a song which is chichora type of song? I can't even nibble it, so it doesn't even come to me. We've done item songs. It's not that we haven't. I've composed a couple of item songs recently. I'm very proud of. But it's in that BD Jalale or Kajrari, that kind of vibe, which is what I can do. And like I said, I have nothing against other kind of music. I have nothing against Char Botal Vodka as a song, or Kolavaridi. I love Kolavaridi. But can I make something like that? It's not my expression anyway. If I had made Char Botal Vodka, like, okay, let's take that example now that we've got that. And if I had made a song, my first call to my mom would have been, please excuse the lyrics. But this is a song that I had to make and I wanted to make. I believe in it. I believe it will be a hit. That's why I'm making it. But pardon me, aapko acha nahi lagega, let's go and do a Kashi trip. That happened. Uh, so in Alap, this film, this specific conversation has happened. Now that I'm bringing, I just remembered. So there's an item song that they needed to have. Okay. And they had sent me the lyrics. The director's father had written there. One very lovely gentleman. Okay, he had introduced us to all the folk musicians in Chhattisgarh. That's where the film is. Then he sent me these lyrics, which were what? Uh, huh. क्या what something धीरे धीरे ले ले मजा was the चढ़ती जवानी मजेदार के धीरे धीरे ले ले मजा. This was the, and he had written this. So I called up. So his name is Manikpuri sir. So I called him. आप तो ऐसे नहीं थे जब मिले थे. ये सब कहाँ से आ रहा है? And he was blushing. I could hear him blush on the phone. He's like, अरे मोहन जी, हो गया मतलब ऐसे लिख. I said, are you sure you want this? Because ये अजीब सा ही है. हाँ वो भिलाई में ऐसे ही होता है तो वो एक गाना हमें ऐसे चाहिए. ठीक है. So I composed the tune. Coco and I were laughing when we composed it. Finally we composed it. ठीक है. And the tune was a ऐसा एक ट्यून है. So I called my mom. I said, काशी यात्रा फिक्स कर लो, हम लोग सबको जाना पड़ेगा थोड़ा. We have to atone for us. She said, what happened? What did you do? So there's an item song. I'll sing you. So I first sang the tune. She said, this tune is nice. What's the problem? I said, now let me sing it with the lyrics. She said, okay. Sang it.
Yes.
She said, yeah, you're right. Kashi Yatra jana padega. But these kind of things where you also realize that your gurus and your idols are actually quite cool because they also understand कि ये करना है. So my mom, dad, my sister, they were only laughing, and the lyrics were genuinely cringeworthy. Okay, I will not try and
But
justify
I
the
think
lyrics.
you killed it, na? Because of the way you, the tune that I'm hearing, I think that aspect has been killed. The vulgarity has been really subdued.
Correct. But does that work for the song? Where it's still a conversation that I have with myself that had that song been given to someone who has done Fevicol, say, as someone who has done Baby Doll, will they have been able to justify that lyric far better than I had? Yeah. That is it is a truth that they would have. That song might have been one of the most popular songs possible. I couldn't have made it like that. So I imposed my value system on a song which I had no business doing in the first place. So those are those situations where I might have gotten away with this thing that पहले तो मैंने मम्मी को बोल दिया काशी यात्रा जाना पड़ेगा, but she knows I am not the one who's written the lyrics, so it's fine. मैंने कोई पाप तो नहीं किया. Yeah. But at that situation, I have not done the right thing for the producer, where I've created a song which is not what that producer wanted in the first place. At the end of the day, they liked it because they also were in that zone. It was not a non-melodic song. It was that.
Yeah, it is good.
But I don't know whether it could have been done in a more, for lack of a better word, if the tune was also in exactly the same zone, not trying to put a classy tune to a song which is not like this. So that Kolavaridi worked because it is that Raste Wala tune. That is why it worked. It nibhaved that correctly. So it is. अगर वो बहुत म्यूजिकली मूर्खी के साथ गाता तो वो गाना कभी नहीं चलता. It's that zone. So those learnings are also there.
This reminds me that for most of my initial part of the career, I used to write very straightforward copy. I just did not like any kind of like adding some flavor which made a bigger impression on people. It was more factual, more closer to the truth, and yeah, there was strategy behind it because I put my thinking and I would say the right thing, but I would never go very, very flamboyant on it. Once I was angry at some client and he was rejecting all the copy again and again, and I wrote it in that manner, and he said, this is exactly what I've been asking you to do. And suddenly there was this whole Kulja Simpson, oh, this is why I have been having fights with clients. They've been wanting me to be flamboyant and I just do not want to be. And I changed it. And like your journey, I think the journey was so beautiful because initially you had to live with a lot of, you were cringing, but you had to do this. It's business. You have to make money. But at some point, I came to a point where I realized that no, it's not necessary. You can actually use your vocabulary to better, like you said, you learn new things that you can do with your art. And then you can come up with a third expression which makes them happy, and it is not really as. In fact, you now set me thinking on the problematic bit of it that has one imposed, like I have certain clients, I don't work on booze clients or smoking clients or even pharmaceutical. I have certain do's and don'ts. And thankfully, the 2 or 3 clients who are regular clients have agreed to all the terms and conditions. And which was a shock to me because initially, just putting it out in the market saying I will not do these things. Oh, I've had clients begging me, It's not funny. Matlab, they are saying, okay, look, I work only with you. So
Hmm.
why should I take this client elsewhere? I said,
Ah,
no, but I've worked in that industry. I have some ethical problems with that whole thing.
hmm.
And it's beautiful. I think today I'm going to actually sit down and think on this because in the way you put it, I never saw it that I understood that I was imposing certain value system, but I always thought it was good for the world also. But what about the whole integrity of what is being created? I never
Sure.
saw it from that point of view. I think that requires some food for thought in terms of dunya hai. You cannot
See,
put down one rule that everybody's got to follow. On one hand, you don't
yeah,
make rules for yourself, and on the other hand, you're putting down very strict rules for others who are dealing with you. It's not saying,
yeah.
yeah,
If it's only your job, if it's an Agni song repeatedly, then we choose where we want to take the lyrics. It's fine. We won't write
yeah,
Chaddi Jawani for an Agni song. That's never going to happen. But if we are doing it to satisfy another person's requirement of that song, and that's what we said we will do, then it's a your deal is slightly different because you're saying you're same here. We will not do promotions or work for an alcohol client or for a smoking client or anything to do with. We'll be happy to do surrogate advertising, but we are not happy to do stuff which promotes these kind of things. We play a lot of college shows, so we have all of that, uh, which is a similar zone. But yes, choosing not to do it is one side, but choosing to do it and then imposing your value system on something which is not theirs, that is the tricky one.
yeah. It's an
Not to do it is fine.
interesting way to think. Um, I am finding this conversation is fairly. I was unsure what kind of conversation I wanted to have with you in terms of um, values. Is it too boring a conversation with somebody like you at that point of time, 2 years back, when I was thinking
Huh.
that we would do this? At that time, you were a little more flamboyant, and then suddenly, I think COVID tempered all of us down quite a bit. There is a lot of wisdom.
ऐसा कुछ नहीं था. I don't know. Maybe I was. I don't know. I have no clue. But
At least
yeah, I've become
that's the
calmer now.
imagery I had, and but today
Yeah.
I'm finding it is such a beautiful, intricate mix of music, and because I didn't know what your the people who follow you would want to hear from you, and uh, would I make you sing something? I said, no, this is something that is not true to what I have been trying to do. It's not about
Sure.
hero worship of any kind. And but at the
Hmm.
same time, I find people who are successful are not successful by chance. There is a certain value system they've followed, and there is a certain discipline uh, without which they would not be there. And
Sure.
I'm still to find fly by night. Ekad success is another story that may happen to someone, but
Sure.
people who stayed there and stayed the course and done some good work, they may not agree with my own version of things, but they put in a lot of work to be where they are. So in
Sure.
that sense, the study would have been what it has turned out today. One last question I want to ask you: at the juncture where you stand, uh,
Hmm.
where you've been reasonably successful, there is a Agni kind of music that people look at. In the
Hmm.
last, I think 6 months specifically, whatever little bit that I have been seeing your journey, you have actually gone back to the drawing board and really started drawing inspiration, creating stuff which has not been coming from you for a long time because that is not the kind of expression you wanted or had at that point of time.
Sure.
How have you taken this whole serious thing called Mohan successful or whatever and put it out there, trying something which is completely not you in a manner? Uh, how have you faced this vulnerability and how have you undergone the mental journey?
One interesting thing that happened actually. Um, this is I'm taking you back. I'm going to come to your question, but there's a background that I want to give to this.
Yeah.
When we created our first album as Agni, we had zero benchmarks. We had nothing to live up to. We had our sound. The only people who chose how that album is going to sound was the five of us in the studio. We did all of that. We went to Sony. I mean, we went to all the labels. We got a deal. We released that album. There also, we were like, yeah, these guys are saying make the songs shorter. They won't play on radio and all that. So, उसपे भी हम बहुत we were pissed off and all of that. Um, but it was still our expression. There was and not our expression ridered by anything. It was just what we felt that ये अच्छा music है. 2 years later, Ahaten became a big hit. Ahaten's non-lyric version became a big hit, because of which people started realizing that Agni exists. After which, then they heard our old songs. Now we had expectation. Now the problem is, you got to a show, there are 10,000 people singing Aate back to you, and now they're singing your previous songs, Sadore, Kabira. They're asking for more of your songs. No one's asking you for a cover anymore.
Oh,
But the next song that you release now has to live up to Aate. You are now trying to create a song which is like Aate. Now what have you done? You created Aate because you wanted to create it. Aate actually is one of those, I used to hate people who used to say things like something like what you said in between, that music comes through you. People, it's very Bollywoodian to say this. Arey sir, matlab main to ऊपर वाला देता. You know, I used to hate that. ये क्या है? मतलब fake humility क्यों दिखा? Then it happened to us. Because Sadhuri took us some 6 months to get right and put it in there. We were completely unhappy. We did Coco and I sat in a hotel room. He played one chord, started singing. He said, "Acha, sunna, isko aisa ga." 5 minutes, which is the duration of the song, it actually took that time to compose. And we were like, okay, so nice. And even we were surprised by the fact that we liked it so much. You know, it's not just the fact that someone else liked it or anything like that. So we knew it's
which
a
is
good song.
never the case, I guess.
Sorry?
Which is never the case. I think a creative person first does things for himself or herself.
Sure. But immediate that, wow, I mean, this happened and we're not sure how it happened. It's that kind of a song. Uh, so we didn't create that song in a certain way. We spoke about it later. But after that song became popular, we were faced with this strange task of trying to figure out why it became popular. Was it because we did a promo on Splitsvilla? Was it because we decided to ask audience to write lyrics and because they were involved with the song? Is the business side of things, did that create popularity for the song? Did the song become popular because the tune is great? What is there in the tune that is great? There were no lyrics. The song, there were some complicated parts. It was not such a simple song that people could sing. There was only one part that people could sing along. That doesn't have any of the formulas of it becoming a popular song. I had sung it like da di da 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 di. So I thought maybe because it's phonetically very close to the sargam, ga re ga pa sa ni. Maybe that's why people are, because sargam is very powerful. All these thoughts happened. Now we were faced with this strange situation where we had to live up to a sound we had created for ourselves. Now we had an identity that we were too afraid to break. Failure from there was not an option because we were too new to success. We couldn't deal with the situation that those saal yaar, after we released our album, no one was calling us for shows. We were worried that will we still be able to be musicians. Our friend's father gave us 11 shows, so we could sort of earn money the first year. Should I go back to being a banker? Should I call my boss? Uh, was a question mark. Then this happened. Then now it's the opposite. Okay, we have to live up to this. That is when our music composition took a little bit of a beating for a while. We didn't release those songs because we were continuously trying to create the next hit song. We stopped that in 2013. Then Kaise Ho Tum, Ranjane Ardi, all those songs happened, which were songs that were our expression again. But that journey, it took me a while to realize this is where I'm going wrong. Why am I trying to recreate something that's been done or recreate even that success and try and do one more of the same? That worked because we did something fresh. Now let's do something fresh, and the only way to do it fresh is to remove those expectations of ourselves. This is now what has been continuing over a period of time. This Carnatic music, my going back to roots, it's always been there. Now, whether or not I can, nibhao it properly in an Agni concert is difficult in terms of my classical. There are certain things that I I don't want to impose a sudden 6 minute alap and 6 minute sargam that I'm going to do where I'm showcasing my Carnatic skills or playing mridangam. Uh, I want to be able to showcase that in a way that people who come to hear an Agni concert also get what they've paid for. Now this lockdown gave us that opportunity for my sister, my mom, and me to collaborate and take these things forward. So, but it is much more to do with your mind gets freed up when you realize that you don't have to live up to your own name also. Whatever little name that because if it's a smaller name, it's even more important because that's all you have. You can't afford a failure. When it's a very big name, probably we haven't reached there, so I wouldn't know. But if it's a very big name, probably then you can afford to do that, or you can afford to say, "Ek do try kar lete hain." But here it's far more. Every next song is very important for you. Yeah? Every next release is like, oh wow, can't afford to let this go. So it takes a while to get over that and to understand that public are also not idiots. Your listeners, we've been lucky. Our listeners have been very, very faithful to us. Our listeners will be smaller in number than a Bollywood audience, but they'll be faithful to us and they'll listen to every song of us. So we owe them that we do whatever we feel honestly is the best thing that we have at that point. That's what we do. We create a song, we record it, we keep it, we listen to it 3 months later. Do we still like it? Do we want to change something in it? No problem. We'll remix it. We'll mix the whole thing again. We'll add things to the track. But if you're not happy with it 3 months later, we just don't bother. We don't release it. So that's those kind of learnings we've had along the way. We had the luxury of having it because now we're not such strugglers that we have to worry about our daily situation or ये नहीं हुआ तब क्या होगा. But that fear is always true. That our next song is really important. ऐसे नहीं छोड़ सकते यार. That is still there, and that in some cases is detrimental. In some cases helps to stay honest, but in some cases is detrimental because you're searching for a different achievement. You're not searching for the most honest approach. You're searching for what that song did for you in terms of success, and that's a tricky one, man. It's no, I don't think I'll ever be 100% this way or that way. Some part of it will be that I want that success. All of us do, but it's to be able to manage and to be aware of it. At least I've reached there. That okay, I'm now aware that there is this part of me which is talking about how to make this popular. वो मैं marketing पे छोड़ता हूँ. पहले अपना गाना तो बना लेता हूँ. So that I think I've been able to dealing that to a large extent.
That's wonderful. I've been thinking. I've known you as a friend for a long time, and I've known a bit of your music. Can't say I'm like one of the bigger fans who knows every song that you put out there. But today I'm really a very happy friend in that sense that I get to know the person who I think it's an important thing that we gain from each other as people, as professionals, as friends. The value systems that code of ethics that is not oftenly talked about because most of the times, even when I started the values workshop, the bigger thing was that the one thing that has been spoken about to a lot of youngsters is success and failure, but nobody talks about how to deal with bad days or what is it that sustains your bad times. Like the even in your last answer, while you're talking about your success, just that whole 6 month period, one can imagine how much you're successful. So you should be happy, but you're not happy because you're trying to recreate something and you are a human being. You cannot say that it doesn't affect you at all or your friends don't know or you're not intelligent enough to understand. I think on the in the back of our minds we do understand what are the problems, but just that whole journey itself is required for this to reach the point of being the poem, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully when I'm 70 I'll be able to say maybe I am at some point.
Yeah, it
At
is a
least
long way away.
strive for it. At least to strive for it.
Yes. So thank you so much, Mohan. It's been a wonderful conversation. Now
My
I'm yearning
pleasure.
to come and meet you one of these days because we've been planning
We
forever
have
on
to.
that.
Yeah, man. And no, what I the reason I was also keen to do this, I also didn't know what we were going to talk about beyond. You just said it's a conversation. करेंगे. Vulnerability पे था, that's something like that. But why I really like speaking to you in over the last 2-3 years is about you don't do the यूपुरी ऊपर यार ये गाना अच्छा लगा. It's good to see that you're doing well. खत्म हो गया. And that kind of zone you're very clear that you want to tell me that सुन ये क्यों कर रहा है यार तू अपना roots वाला कर. And I love that conversation. I might not have to agree with you all the time. That was never the point.
That's never the point.
The point is you care enough and are honest enough to have that conversation. And that's a very important thing for all of us to have in terms of the people we surround ourselves with, the people we choose to have conversations with. This industry is so easy to have people who are always saying, "Arey, arey, sir, मतलब आपका तो हर गाना hit ही है, आपके सामने तो कोई भी नहीं है." We'll never reach there because we're not. That's a different zone. Let's just put it that way. But it's far more meaningful to have these conversations. At some point, even today, there would be some things that you would have said, which I would have been forced to think of because you asked me that question.
Yeah.
And now I'll think about it, and that will affect me in my decision making later, or in how I choose to
All
be.
of us. All of us.
So that's a great thing to be a part of, man. So thank you. I'm
Thank
glad
you
we
so
did
much.
this.
I'll see you
Okay.
around. Bye.
Done. See you. Bye.